It's a good idea to move around the image and try and keep things balanced as you go instead of focusing on one area for too long. You can always go back and do more. When you're first starting out, it can be difficult to see the difference between the lights and the darks in a neutral area. Something you can do is make a curve layer and darken it. That'll accentuate those areas for you. You can just call it darkening for retouching, and it's not going to be a permanent layer. It's just one that you can use so that you can really see the areas that are too dark and the areas that need balancing. You can work with it on until you feel like you kind of have a hang of it, and then you can just turn it off. So now I'm just going in and I'm burning and dodging those areas on her cheek where there's too much of a dark area and too much of a light area. I'm just going to balance it out a little bit so that it reads like one neutral surface. So as you can see now, when I take it off, I've balanced that area and I was able to see what I was doing a little bit more effectively. So now let's go in, take care of this dark area around the nose here. You can set your brush to different opacities, different exposure ratings. When I'm doing the burn and dodge, I like to keep it somewhere between 3 and 8%. That way I have complete control. It might take a little bit longer, but I can move in smaller increments instead of one big movement. It just gives you more control over what you're doing. Sometimes you might need to make it more than that, but generally between 3% and 8% is going to be effective. You can also do large patchy areas with the burn and dodge. So we're just going to move around the image a little bit more to balance it out. I think it's really important to move around the image a lot. If you focus on one area for too long, it's really hard to keep it balanced so that it all looks even and natural. Working with the eyes, you got to be really subtle here, so we're just going to burn and dodge, balance it out a little bit. Clean up some of the darkness around the bottom of the eye. Balance it out. These lines here, we don't want to get rid of them completely. We want to remember what the shape of an eye actually looks like. It's round, so it's going to have a bottom. Sometimes when people are retouching, they just completely get rid of that, and you can't just get rid of it because it's going to flatten it out. It's helpful sometimes if you have to get rid of something a little bit, you can fade it back in your movement there. Apple F, and you can fade it. Or you can go up under Edit, Fade. So we're just going to clean up some of these lines. Burning and dodging. You're going to spend a lot of time burning and dodging, but it's going to give you the most control over the image. And since you're the one retouching, you really want to be in control. We'll just smooth some of this stuff out, working slowly and effectively. She's got some patchy skin here, so we're going to tackle some of that with the cloning stamp. I'm going to darken, have it set to darken, and I'm going to darken those white areas that are standing out where the makeup wasn't blended very well. Do sort of a big movement here because this area is going to need a lot of work. Balance it out a little. And then we're going to go in and do the same thing with it set to lighten. When you do the clone stamp, because you are changing the pixels and the actual shape of the pixels, sometimes it can get a little soft. So that's why we work in low opacity. So you're not going to have it get too soft. Now I'm dodging out that bridge of the nose there so it doesn't lose shape of where the light is hitting her. So I'm reshaping her nose without changing too much here. We don't want to actually change the shape of her nose. We just want to change the way the light is hitting it and the texture of the skin. Just balance out the way the skin looks here. Again, moving around the image is really important so that everything stays balanced. And you're going to have to go back to each area several times, but it will look natural as opposed to focusing on one area too much and then trying to match all the other areas to that level of retouching. If you just work slowly and you go around it evenly, everything will be balanced. Her skin looks very dry, so we're going to need to go over it several times and soften it up a bit. By starting out with the Burning and Dodge tool, we're evening the highlights and the shadows so that it looks softer, looks more neutral, looks cleaner, without actually changing the shape of it or changing the texture. So just move throughout, try and balance it out as much as you can. Change the size of your brush. Sometimes you're going to need to work with a really small brush so you can get in certain areas. Sometimes you're going to need it to be bigger. Alright, so we're going to zoom out and we're going to just reassess the image, what's jumping out at us, screaming, fix me, help me. We need to kind of move around here. Now this nose area is definitely going to need some more work, as well as the eyes. Her eye makeup seems a little bit harsh, so let's soften that up a bit. Darken it again and look around, see what's standing out with it darken. Balance out some of those really dark areas. Got some areas on the forehead there that we're definitely going to need to balance out. See what we've got here now. It's looking a lot better. Doing skin retouching is a lot like drawing. It's very helpful if you have a background in drawing and painting. It's not essential, but it will help you out if you understand how light hits the structure. Sometimes I like to look at anatomy books if I feel like I don't understand how the light should be hitting an object. It can be very helpful to see the way the shape of the face or the neck or whatever part of the body it is that you're working on, how it moves, and how light affects it. So we're going through this image now, and we're just touching it up a little bit more and smoothing things out. So we want to make sure that we keep that structure, the way that the light is hitting her on her cheeks, a little bit on her chin, on the bridge of her nose and her forehead. That's what's going to give us shape.